Welcome to NTD News. Here are today's top stories. U.S. senators have agreed on a $2 trillion relief package. The bill will help families and businesses weather the storm caused by the CCP virus. If you're leaving New York, you now need to self-isolate. New cases are popping up in places like Long Island, suggesting some New Yorkers are still leaving the city. The UK is about to enforce stricter containment measures. Police can now detain anyone they think may be carrying the virus. And members of the USA kayak team are still training, even after the Olympic Games was postponed. They say it's given them another year to get even better. The White House and Congress striking a deal today for an emergency aid package worth $2 trillion. It's the biggest relief package in American history. It's designed to counter some of the economic toll caused by the CCP virus, also known as the novel coronavirus.
Well, Madam President, I have an update for the information of all senators and for the information of the American people, and it's good news.
We have a bipartisan agreement on the largest rescue package in American history.
The White House and U.S. congressional leaders in the Senate finally came together on a $2 trillion relief package in response to the pandemic. Democrats twice blocked the package prior to the agreement. The details come out later on Wednesday. The package would give direct payment of up to $3,000 to most U.S. families. It would provide over $350 billion for small business loans to help them make payroll and grant leave of absence instead of firing people.
And that means that company or small business can reassemble once this awful plague is over and our economy can get going quickly.
The package also includes a $500 billion fund for guaranteed subsidized loans to help larger industries, $250 billion for expanded unemployment aid, and at least $75 billion for hospitals. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell called it a wartime level of investment in the country. Secretary of the Treasury Steven Mnuchin told reporters after the agreement was announced that Trump absolutely would sign it if it passed Congress.
President Trump says he hopes to open up large sections of the country by Easter. He said the decision would ultimately be based on hard facts and data from the experts. And while the president is hopeful, residents in New York might not be so. They're facing the highest risk of infection across the nation. And still, some people are still leaving the city, risking outbreaks in other areas.
But to everyone who has left New York over the last few days, because of the rate of the number of cases, you may have been exposed before you left New York.
White House officials say any person who has left New York City and the New York metro area should self-quarantine for 14 days. In the U.S., New York City dwellers bear the highest risk of catching the CCP virus that started in Wuhan, China. White House Coronavirus Response Coordinator Dr. Debbie Birx said 60% of all new cases are coming out of the metro New York area. This means anyone leaving the area may well be carrying the infection.
The idea, if you look at the statistics, it's disturbing. About 1 per 1,000 of these individuals are infected. That's about 8 to 10 times more than in other areas.
Dr. Birx said new cases were popping up on Long Island and elsewhere. Dr. Fauci recommended these people monitor their own state of health and see a physician if necessary. Dr. Birx said it's critical to observe the rules about quarantine so you don't pass the infection on to others, beginning a new cluster of cases. The 14-day self-quarantine period begins from the day of leaving New York. White House officials said the situation in New York is deeply concerning. The New York metro area accounts for almost a third of all U.S. deaths from the virus.
And while the Senate works to soften the blow for the American people, lawmakers on both sides of the aisles want to hold the Chinese regime to account. There are now at least 3 initiatives making their way through the House and Senate.
It seems the Chinese Communist Party may soon have the full weight of Congress to deal with. 3 separate initiatives across the House and Senate are being spun up. The first is a bipartisan House resolution condemning Beijing's handling of the virus outbreak. It's co-led by Republican Jim Banks and Democrat Seth Moulton. The resolution details the regime's cover-up. It cites a study which found if China took action 3 weeks earlier, the spread of coronavirus would have been reduced by 95% globally.
China should pay a severe price for that negligence, for their role in the matter of allowing this to happen.
The resolution has so far seen endorsement from over 30 co-sponsors. The second action is Senator Josh Hawley's resolution for a full investigation of the CCP's lies and actions that killed thousands of their own people and turned the CCP virus into a global pandemic. The senator says Beijing should pay damages to the rest of the world for their criminal conduct. He said the resolution would be introduced sometime on Tuesday. The third action is a request by 3 senators that President Trump create a task force to combat Chinese communist propaganda surrounding the virus. The task force would be under the National Security Council. The Chinese regime has doubled down on its anti-American propaganda. It initially suggested the American military brought the virus to Wuhan. It's now blaming President Trump directly. There is no evidence of the virus originating anywhere but Wuhan, China. The task force would, 1, produce a white paper on the origins of COVID-19 and how the CCP worked to conceal it, and 2, provide guidance to U.S. government employees on messaging surrounding COVID-19 and how to counter false CCP narratives about its origins.
And there are severe blood shortages across the country as blood drives are cancelled due to the fast-spreading virus. In California, the American Red Cross is urging citizens to donate during the outbreak.
21-year-old Mason Ekbali rushed to a location in Los Angeles when he heard about the shortage.
I'm a first-time donor in this, in what's going on with the COVID-19, and I think that's very important because, again, many of the blood drives have to get canceled because of the virus, and many people are probably afraid to come out and donate in this time period, but I think, again, you're in a safe environment.
26-year-old Blaise Lampugnali urged anyone feeling well enough to come out and donate.
There will be people who need it, and it will get used. So there's, it can feel tough to feel cramped inside maybe, or feel like you're not able to contribute. This is definitely a way to do it.
According to the American Red Cross, the coronavirus, or the CCP virus, is not transmissible via transfusion. Roberto Torres, a spokesperson of the organization, emphasized that they're taking all necessary steps to ensure donating blood during the pandemic is safe.
We want to make sure that people know that donating blood is very safe. Even if people don't know if they have the virus or not, we have to check you to make sure your temperature is okay to donate, that you're safe to donate, that you're in good health.
Inside the blood drives, nurses take precautions like cleaning hands and beds and changing their gloves before and after each donor.
And if you'd like to donate, you can make an appointment on the Red Cross website or by calling 1-800-RED-CROSS. And back to New York, where a safety patrol group is trying to keep the city clean. Literally. They're passing out wipes and food to the homeless, whom they say have been forgotten in this pandemic. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on the Guardian Angels.
They patrol the streets for crime.
You're shooting dice, huh?
But now during this pandemic, they've added hygienic care for the homeless at the top of their list. The Guardian Angels are passing out hand wipes, food, and water to the homeless, who they say the city and other officials aren't doing enough to help during this time.
That's an alcohol water solution, so it's going to wash your hands real good.
There are about 58,000 homeless people living in shelters in New York City. The city found last year that over 3,000 were without shelter on one night. And while people are told to self-isolate at home and wash their hands, Sliwa said the homeless sometimes do not have those options.
They keep telling us that on TV over and over, wash your hands. Well, how are the homeless and emotionally disturbed going to wash their hands? Some of them have no control of their physical or emotional faculties. You have to wash it for them.
So the patrol group gives care packages to those who need them the most, on the trains and in the subways. Sliwa said you can't ignore the homeless because they can also get COVID-19 and spread it in shelters and other areas. And despite the risk of getting it himself, he said he's not worried.
I seem to remember Mother Teresa and the nuns caring for lepers with leprosy in Calcutta. They never wore a mask. They never wore gloves.
He has called an ambulance for people with fevers. So far, 30 people in city shelters have tested positive for the virus. The city said they've started isolating them in special units. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
And in the UK, new emergency legislation includes enforcement measures never seen before during peacetime. It's expected to be signed into law later this week. But the UK government says it will only use them when necessary. Jane Worrell has the story.
The UK is adopting stricter measures in an effort to stop the spread of COVID-19, the disease caused by the CCP virus. New legislation has been rushed through Parliament as the UK follows the footsteps of its European neighbours. Parliament itself is to close for at least 4 weeks. The UK is already under lockdown, but the new legislation that is 320 pages long gives power to the police to break up gatherings, as well as isolate or detain anyone they think may be at risk of carrying the virus. On Tuesday, police shut down a gathering of around 20 people having a cookout. Other measures in the emergency law will allow workers to claim sick pay more quickly. The legislation shows just how serious the UK government thinks things might get. The chair for the Police Federation of England and Wales said they will do what they can to protect the public, but admitted that the practicalities of police in the lockdown came with challenges. He's asked for the public's support at this time of crisis. Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
And in France, there's growing concern over the lack of face masks for medical workers. Caregivers on the front line worried that without them, they'll infect other patients. Our France correspondent David Vivez has the details.
France began lockdown on Monday the 17th. Since then, 5 doctors have died after being infected by the CCP virus. And this number is likely to grow. But there might be a simple reason behind it. France seriously lacks protective masks. For the nurse union spokesperson, the situation is unbearable.
We are really angry against our government. We see they are incompetent. We had no strategic stock of masks.
Doctors and nurses are the most likely to be infected, working on the front line of the battle with the virus. But they can also contaminate other patients.
The consequences are that doctors contaminate each other.
On February 19th, France's authorities sent 17 tons of personal protective equipment to China. But China produces half of the world's supply of masks, so there should be no lack of those in the country.
Sending equipment to China is only about politics. In fact, China doesn't need those masks.
Whereas in France, health authorities called on French citizens to give any extra masks they possess to those working on the front line. This triggered the anger of nurses. According to Amoureau, there are several hundreds of caregivers infected in each major hospital. In his words, fighting the virus is a war. But when the outbreak is gone, lawsuits will follow.
These are severe mistakes. We can expect hundreds of thousands of people infected because of the health authorities' incompetence. So we will sue the people in charge after the outbreak's gone.
Report by David Vives, NTD News.
And soccer icons Lionel Messi and Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola have each donated over $1 million to help fight against the virus. Messi's donation will be split between a hospital clinic in Barcelona and another medical center in his home country, Argentina. The hospital clinic confirmed the news on Twitter, saying, "Thank you very much, Leo, for your commitment and your support." Guardiola's donation will go towards health equipment. The region of Catalonia, where Guardiola is from and where Messi has lived since joining Barca age 13, is one of the worst hit areas of Spain. And with nearly all of the nation's restaurants, movie theaters and entertainment venues shuttered, stir-crazy Americans are on the hunt for entertainment, and one mostly forgotten pastime might just be what they're looking for.
Usually considered a relic of the past, drive-in movies are making a comeback amid the pandemic and the all-new need to self-isolate.
It's a night out, and especially during the pandemic that we're faced with right now, it's a safer way to get out.
The drive-in is, for now in certain parts of the country, one of the only remaining refuges of public entertainment for getting out of the house while staying inside your car.
It's our anniversary and we're like, oh, what can we do? Everything's closed. And we're like, well, drive-in theater's kind of like a self-quarantined movie.
Drive-ins aren't without their own virus concerns.
We have all the employees wearing gloves. He has hand sanitizer there too.
At the Paramount Drive-In Theater in Los Angeles, they've limited their concession stand to 10 people at a time. But some come armed with their own.
So we brought our own food. We got Shake These Pizza and we got fried chicken and what else? Large pizza, yeah, okay. We got water.
As production studios clear out their release calendars, some drive-ins will be digging into their vault of films to play older movies for now. All in all, the relative safety and fun of drive-ins seem to be helping to cure boredom around the country.
And coming up, one Wuhan resident wants to hold local officials accountable. He says the devastation caused by the CCP virus is a man-made disaster. More on that when we return.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
While countries grapple with the spread of the CCP virus, another kind of virus is now causing panic in China. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has the details.
Just as the world gets prepared for the novel coronavirus or CCP virus, there is another virus causing panic. According to reports, a migrant worker in China suddenly felt unwell in the early hours of March 23rd and was rushed to the hospital. He died several hours later. According to health authorities, the man tested negative for the CCP virus but did test positive for another virus, the hantavirus. So what is the hantavirus and how worried should people be? According to the CDC, hantaviruses are a type of virus commonly spread by rodents and can cause several different types of diseases. It can spread to people through inhaling air from rodent urine or droppings that's infected with a hantavirus. According to the CDC, treatment options are limited, so it's best to avoid rodents. So what are the symptoms? According to the Mayo Clinic, there are 2 stages. The first stage includes flu-like symptoms. Then the condition usually worsens after 10 days to potentially life-threatening breathing problems. In North America, the mortality rate is over 30%. According to Chinese state-run media, the medical teams that came from other places to Hubei province to help are going home now. But according to Chinese Caixing.net, an internal document from March 20th shows the Hubei novel coronavirus epidemic prevention and control headquarters asked medical teams from outside Hubei province to stay, and the date of departure would be announced later. A source said right now, every day there are up to a dozen asymptomatic patients who test positive. The situation in Wuhan is unclear. As the pandemic continues to spread around the world, Chinese authorities announced they will lift travel bans to and from Hubei province. This as authorities have been reporting close to 0 new cases for several days. But locals are worried. A citizen in Wuhan told us many people have tested positive again.
In Wuhan, many people who have been treated or quarantined in temporary hospitals have relapsed and tested positive again. Now the hospitals do not dare to accept patients. There are policies to this.
And the virus has cost possibly thousands or even tens of thousands of lives in Wuhan alone. Now, one resident wants to hold local officials accountable for the devastation it's caused.
A taxi driver in Wuhan lost his mom to the CCP virus. Now he wants the government to compensate. He talked to her sister media, the Chinese Epoch Times. We're using a pseudonym for Jiang, and his voice has been distorted to protect his identity.
I recorded the whole process of taking her to the hospitals. I have the videos and I have the receipts. Now I can't go out yet. When I can go out, I will find a lawyer, even sue the regime for compensation. This is not a natural disaster. It's a man-made disaster.
He took his mom to 3 hospitals. At the last hospital, they waited an entire day for a bed. Soon after his mom was admitted, her condition turned critical and she passed away. He blames Wuhan officials for covering up the outbreak in its early stages. First, concealing that it happened, and second, saying it wouldn't spread between humans.
They suppressed the 8 whistleblowers. The Public Security Bureau said they were spreading rumors. Of course, we trusted the Public Security Bureau. Then an expert came out and said, it can't transmit human to human, nothing to worry about. That's how it got so bad in Wuhan. This is completely due to irresponsible acts of government officials.
He pointed to one person particularly deserving of blame, Wuhan Central Hospital's Communist Party secretary, Tsai Li.
The party secretary in the Central Hospital, she didn't allow the doctors to talk about it. They couldn't even wear face masks. That's why the Central Hospital suffered the most losses.
Zhang said these officials, and especially this party secretary, should answer for this disaster.
For regular folks, if you drive under the influence and endanger the public, you'll be sentenced at least 6 months, even without hurting anybody. Her action resulted in so many deaths.
He added, since his mom got sick, he had to deal with various officials of the Chinese Communist Party. He said in his experience, these officials would rather deflect blame than take full responsibility for what they do.
And coming up, Boeing sets a date to restart production of its 737 MAX, but the company is still facing financial challenges during the pandemic. We bring you the details after the break.
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. The Epoch Times is independent. We're not controlled by any special interests, and we never will be. The Epoch Times is a non-partisan media. That means we don't stand for any political party. This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would ensnare this country in ignorance, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
YouTube users may notice a reduction in video quality as videos now default to standard definition. The company announced the change Tuesday and rolled it out right away. The move is aimed at easing the burden on internet infrastructure as lockdowns and other emergency policies have kept millions at home. It's expected to last for approximately 30 days. Meanwhile, YouTube said users will still be able to manually change the resolution on their videos. YouTube and Netflix previously said they would reduce streaming quality in Europe for a limited time to prevent the internet collapsing under the strain of unprecedented upsurge during the pandemic. And industry sources say Boeing plans to restart production of its 737 MAX airplane in May. Production stopped for months following a safety ban on the best-selling jet.
Boeing plans to restart production of its 737 MAX jet by May. That's according to sources familiar with the matter. The 737 MAX is the same airplane involved in 2 fatal crashes in Ethiopia and Indonesia that killed hundreds of people. The restart would end a months-long stoppage sparked by a safety ban on Boeing's best-selling jet. Boeing's plans depend on the seriousness of the disruptions caused by the coronavirus, as well as clearance from U.S. regulators, which Boeing still expects to get in mid-2020. When asked about the May restart goal, Boeing CFO Greg Smith told Reuters on Tuesday that, quote, "It'll be a very slow, methodical, systematic approach to warming the lineup and getting crews back in place." Boeing ceased production of the 737 MAX in January as it struggled to win regulatory approvals. In the meantime, a backlog piled up of 400 undelivered jets. Now, the coronavirus pandemic has added on to that crisis, wiping out global travel demand and erasing billions from Boeing's market value. This week, Boeing said it would halt production in Washington state to cut the risk of spreading the virus, beginning on Wednesday. It has reported dozens of cases across its Seattle area facilities.
And still to come, a Michelin-starred chef in London is preparing meals for those in need. He says if he's going to go under, he may as well do it with a good heart. Stay tuned for the story. And while the Congress deliberated yesterday, a few miles north of the capital, members of the USA canoe and kayak team were coming to terms with disappointing news that the Tokyo 2020 Games had been postponed.
The Great Falls area is a hotbed for U.S. paddling, and the national team was out on the water despite the International Olympic Committee's announcement. Tyler Euthus, the USA's #2 ranked kayaker, said he felt the committee had no choice but to put off the Games until next year.
Everybody's been putting their heart into this for the past year, and a lot of people, like, their dreams are coming to fruition, and this is going to be their chance. But I think everybody understands, like, this is just so much bigger than any of us or our sport.
Erin Mann, the team's communications manager, said there was uncertainty now about the team's financial support from the U.S. Olympic Committee.
So they'll have to determine their budgets and figure out what they're able to put out, and hopefully we'll be in a position where we won't have to worry about that.
Joshua Joseph, who started kayaking at age 6 and has won 2 IFC Junior World Championships, looked ahead to 2021.
I think the dream never dies, and so although you have another year to push, it's just another year to get better and go even harder at it.
The USA Olympic trials were to be held this spring in Oklahoma City.
And London's Michelin-star winning chef Andrew Wong is giving back to the community by preparing free meals for those in need.
Michelin-star winning chef Andrew Wong is giving out free prepared meals to help his local community amid the virus pandemic. He says he wants to keep his staff occupied and serve people in need during this time of uncertainty.
And then I think as an individual, you have to sit down and you have to go, you know what, there are things in this world which are more important than profit and money. And if we go under, at least try and go under with a good heart, you know.
The team plans to produce 50 to 100 cook-at-home boxes a day if they can get the supplies. Wong said it's been harder to get the boxes out there since Monday when the UK was told to stay at home.
All our business plans have gone out the window anyway, so just, whatever we can do in the immediate future, we can help one person, make them temporarily happy, give them one meal, then that's enough for the moment.
Wong used to serve about 120 diners a day at his flagship restaurant in London. But restaurants, cafes, and bars were told to close as part of Britain's measures to curb the spread of the CCP virus.
And that's the latest updates for now. Thanks for tuning in. Catch up again at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time.